I was wrong about Jimmy Butler. Jimmy Butler, he came into the league with the Chicago Bulls, right? And he played with Derrick Rose. Now, this was post 2011 Derrick Rose, after the knee injury, right? So Derrick Rose was limited. And Jimmy Butler took time to become the player that he is right now. And of course, I've known about him. I mean, he has been good in the past, and I never saw how good he could be when he was in Chicago, right? He was supposed to be what Klay Thompson became to Steph Curry, the right-hand man, the Scottie Pippen of Derrick Rose. It never worked out, right? And so I kind of just wrote him off, right? Like, I knew he was good, but I didn't think he was good enough to make an impact on a franchise, right? He got traded to Minnesota, and that's when this view of him that I have really cemented itself. Because I remember watching Jimmy Butler play against the Houston Rockets in 2018, and it was an ugly series. At the time, the 2018 Houston Rockets were one of the best teams I've probably ever seen offensively, right? And they absolutely dismantled the Minnesota Timberwolves in 5 games. I remember watching that series and Jimmy Butler just struggling to stay in front of James Harden. The Timberwolves just didn't have an answer for James Harden. And that kind of cemented Jimmy Butler's image in my mind. I thought, okay, that's what he is, right? He's a relatively good player. He can make an all-star, but he's kind of maybe on a level of Andrew Wiggins, or maybe lesser, right? I never really thought much of him, right? And I heard the stories that he was good, right? But I never really paid attention to it. One of the stories was just going into practice and absolutely clowning and making a mockery of the Minnesota Timberwolves starting 5. So apparently he took 5 bench players and he challenged the starters on the Timberwolves and absolutely wiped the floor with them. And Jeff Teague, an NBA point guard, a veteran point guard, he's told a story about this and about how Jimmy Butler just came in and he was pissed off that the Timberwolves sucked, and he just kind of like came in there, swore at everyone, and he said, y'all gonna play me, and then he took bench players and absolutely wiped the floor with Cat, right? And him and Karl-Anthony Towns had a falling out because, as I remember it, he thought Karl-Anthony Towns was too soft, and he thought the whole of Minnesota Timberwolves were soft, and that's why they never won anything. That's why he wanted to trade out, and he was partially right. I mean, look at the Timberwolves right now, right? The Timberwolves, their brand is Karl-Anthony Towns and getting knocked out of the NBA playoffs every year in the first round. Nothing's really changed except for when Anthony Edwards came. But back to Jimmy Butler. After the Minnesota Timberwolves, he got shipped off to Philadelphia. Now, Philadelphia is probably kicking themselves in the butt because they let him go. I think they refused to pay him money. His tenure with the Philadelphia 76ers wasn't long, right? He was there, and as I remember it, Joel Embiid and Jimmy, they got along. In fact, they still get along. And in fact, Jimmy was advocating for Joel Embiid to win MVP this season. So they still get along. There was no bad blood like how he had bad blood with Karl-Anthony Towns. And they never got the job done in Philadelphia. It just never metastasized. So after that, he got shipped off to Miami. And I knew of Jimmy, right? Like, I've heard Jimmy Butler with the Miami Heat, but every single time I heard in the last 2-3 years the Miami Heat are gonna be good, I never really took them seriously. Even when they made the NBA Finals in 2020, I never really took them seriously. Why? Because it was the bubble, right? It was kind of like, it's the same reason why people knock LeBron for that bubble ring. It's not your traditional NBA season where you grind 82 games, you're grinding the playoffs, and you have to get through the grind of getting on planes and flying thousands of miles across the country to play a game every second day. That's the difference between the bubble and the regular NBA, right? And so I never really took the Miami Heat seriously. I saw everybody was playing their best basketball in a bubble. Why? Because they never had to deal with the fatigue that comes with traveling, right? With the fatigue that comes with traveling 8 hours and then jet lagged and all that. That all plays a factor into NBA basketball and who wins the championship. That's what I like about sports. And so I never really took the Miami Heat seriously. All the rave about Jimmy Butler in the bubble, I never really took it seriously. I was like, oh, whatever. I mean, it's a fluke, right? Anyone could have done this. It's the bubble. Everyone's playing at their best. We remember Jamal Murray and Donovan Mitchell literally dropped 50 points each in a game, and it was just a crazy period of time, right? So I never really cared for the Miami Heat. Even when it was like, oh, the Miami Heat, pose a problem in the Eastern Conference. The Miami Heat, this, that, and the third. I was like, no, I just don't. It's not really, right? And then there was this season. And I had that same view up until this series, right? So this playoffs, the Miami Heat drew a bad card in facing the Milwaukee Bucks early on because they were a terrible team throughout the regular season. For as good as they are now, it's crazy to think they are an 8th seed, right? So they were terrible this season. I kind of just wrote them off. I wrote off Jimmy Butler. I thought maybe people were just hyping him up. I never really bothered to watch him after James Harden absolutely torched him. The Miami Heat managed to beat the Bulls in a close game. Then they drew a terrible card in having to play the Milwaukee Bucks, right? Luckily for them, Giannis Antetokounmpo was injured in the first 2 games. And Milwaukee kind of thought the way that I do. They kind of weren't really scared of them, right? Because they were an 8th seed. You're not really that good. And we are the 1 seed and we have Giannis Antetokounmpo. And they decided to rest Giannis Antetokounmpo throughout his injury. He didn't play throughout that injury. And Miami stole games from Milwaukee. And it was like, whoa, wait, Miami's up ahead, right? And when Giannis did decide to come back, it was too late. Miami already had the advantage. They had home court advantage already. They were up and they were rolling, right? They were starting to feel themselves. So, against all odds, they knock out the 1st seed in the NBA, the Milwaukee Bucks. And I'm just like, at this point, I'm still like, nah, you know what I mean? Like, would they have really done that if Giannis was fully healthy? We'll see. And then they moved on to the second round. And in the second round, they didn't really have a big problem, right? After they got their confidence in the first round, the second round was very easy. But then we come to this series against the Boston Celtics. And as I was forced to watch Jimmy Butler for the first time since 2018, I've come to my senses. Jimmy Butler's good. Like, I'm late to the party, but Jimmy Butler is good. I was wrong about him. Jimmy Butler is almost Jordan-esque in his approach to the game. He's almost Kobe-esque when I watch him, right? I know there's jokes about him being Michael Jordan's son, but like, really, when I watch him, the higher the stakes are, or the hotter it is in the kitchen, the better he gets. That's Jordan-esque. That's what Jordan, like, he's a type of player that thrives in conflict. Like, I was watching the other day, right? Grant Williams got up in his face in Boston, in the second game, right? Started taunting him and coming up to him and intimidate him. What does Jimmy do? Jimmy proceeds to absolutely destroy Grant and roll the Boston Celtics. And the Celtics had no answer for him. Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum, none of them could answer. None of them could guard him. No one there could guard him, right? And I'm like, whoa. This is Jimmy Butler? This is Jimmy Butler? Like, I was wrong, Like, he's dropping 35 points consistently in games that matter. And he's showing up big in moments that matter. And I'm like, oh, okay, I'm starting to see the hype now. So, game 3, same thing. Absolutely torched the Boston Celtics, right? They had no answer for him. Him, combined with Eric Spoelstra, combined with the veterans that are on the Miami Heat, Boston never had a chance. Boston has a rookie head coach. They never had a chance. Jimmy is playing absolutely incredible, right? And I just want to issue this apology. Jimmy Butler, if you ever see this, bro, I was wrong about you. You're a real baller, bro. He's a hooper, and he's a better hooper when it matters the most. And that's a winning player. I can't wait to see more of him in NBA Finals. But yeah, those are my thoughts on Jimmy Butler. I just wanted to make this video to apologize to the brother because he's the best player in the Eastern Conference. And that's something I never thought I'd say. Jimmy Butler is the best player in the Eastern Conference. If you like this kind of content, hit the subscribe button. I'd really appreciate it. You can clown me for being late to the party, but let me know your thoughts in the comments below. And until next time, kids.